So, yesterday was Christmas. You know what that means? You have earned a vacation. Since most of you watching this video are probably someplace cold right now, a tropical escape to Hawaiian paradise probably sounds amazing. I mean, where else is it 80 degrees this time of year? Hawaii is meant for vacation, right? Wrong. For 1.42 million people, a day of island life is just another day in their, well, regular life. I find it fascinating that 75% of these lucky residents live on the island of Oahu alone, and 347,000 of those residents live in the capital, Honolulu. And it's not like people don't have any other option. It's right here on a map, and as you can see, Oahu is only the third largest island of the 7 inhabited islands. If you look even closer, you can see that there are actually over 100 islands in all of Hawaii. The 980,000 people in the urban Honolulu metropolitan area, aka just the entire island of Oahu, don't let that stop them from squishing onto a tiny isolated volcano in the middle of the Pacific Ocean though. Well, technically 2 volcanoes, and they're not actually that tiny, but boy are they isolated. Honolulu is not only the most western and southern major city in the United States, it's also the most isolated major city in the entire world. The closest city with over 100,000 inhabitants is San Francisco, and that's 2,393 miles away. But I can't blame people for wanting to live here. Heck, I want to live here. Honolulu certainly lives up to its name, and the people here are even more relaxed than the calm, welcoming ocean because the Aloha State isn't just the 50th state, it's a state of mind, too. People here don't value the material or the fancy job. They value time over money and look for any excuse to just celebrate life with a contagious reverence amidst the beautiful blend of Polynesian, Asian, and Western cultures. There's really no reason not to be aloha. Just look at that view. The weather is perfect 270 days out of the year, and while the other 85 days might have a little rain, it normally doesn't last longer than an hour or two. And it's necessary for the thriving nature. But if you're looking to live the island life for your entire life, watch out, because there's definitely trouble in paradise. What kind of trouble could there possibly be, you may ask? Well, I asked myself the same question when I found out that more people are actually moving away from Honolulu than moving to Honolulu. So, before you sell everything you own just to barely be able to afford a studio apartment in town, be sure to watch my top 10 reasons not to move to Honolulu, Hawaii. Number 10. The sun. Everyone knows Hawaii's hot and humid, but a lot of people don't realize that the sun is also a lot stronger here. The Hawaiian Islands are real close to the equator, which means the sun's rays are real strong, which means you really don't want to forget to put on sunscreen every day in Honolulu. Severe sunburns are a commonality on Oahu beaches, and if the sunburn is bad enough, you might also come down with a fever and chills and even get hospitalized. I personally never burn even without sunscreen, but only 45 minutes of kayaking here had me looking like a tomato even though I wore sunscreen. Between the harsh rays from above reflected off the ocean and sand from below, it's pretty much impossible to avoid sun exposure. You might think living in paradise means going to the beach all day every day, but you should really try to limit your time out and about between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. when the sun is highest in the sky. Get used to a schedule where you'll do most of your outdoor activities around sunrise or sunset. Number 9. Traffic. Sure, it's not the worst traffic in the country by any means, Boston, but you'll still spend around 92 hours a year stuck in traffic on Oahu. This is pretty crazy for an island that's only 30 miles one way and 40 miles the other. Now, you might think you'll be able to avoid the traffic simply by taking public transportation. I mean, Honolulu is an urban center with tons of high-rises and a business district, so there must be great public transportation, right? Wrong. There is a bus system that gets the job done around the city, but if you live anywhere else on the island, it's, let's just say, inconsistent. I mean, only 8% of residents actually use it. And while the city itself is pretty walkable as it isn't too spread out, you'll need a car to visit the rest of the island. Also, be prepared to shell out a couple $100s a month for gas and another couple $100 more for parking, which is extremely expensive and extremely hard to come by. Number 8. bad schools. There is a reason Honolulu has the second highest private school attendance of any city in the United States. Over 20% of students attend private school here because the public schools just stink. Surprisingly, this isn't really the state's fault though. The student-to-teacher ratio is actually really good, and the state does spend more on each student per year than the national average. The culture here just doesn't seem to value education much, so a lot of public school families don't encourage their kids to do well or provide the proper support that they need. And then most of the families that do care and can afford it will send their kids to private school, which only makes things worse since it means the public system gets less tax dollars. This means Honolulu only pays its teachers $57,431 a year as opposed to the national average of $60,000. I know it might not sound like a huge difference, but when factoring in the extremely high cost of living, Hawaii teachers are actually the lowest paid in the entire country. So it shouldn't come as much of a surprise that there's currently a shortage of public school teachers and good education in general. Number 7. The homeless. Considering how bad the schools are, it really isn't surprising that there are so many homeless people in Honolulu. Literally everywhere you go, you'll see them bathing at beach showers and relaxing in their tent cities all over the island. Some people are even homeless by choice. The ease of life in warm weather attracts free spirits and hippies who enjoy the nomadic lifestyle. But the vast majority of the homeless population are not homeless by choice. Hawaii has the highest homeless rate per capita in the United States. Urban Honolulu alone currently has nearly 4,500 homeless residents. Around 10% of them are actually people from the mainland who thought they could make it work in Honolulu, but couldn't. Some people are from states who bought their homeless population one-way flights to Hawaii so they'd have no way to get back, and some of them are locals that have recently lost their job or have been priced out of their rent. Over 1,000 of these people suffer from a serious mental illness of some kind, and 873 of them reported a substance abuse disorder. This is honestly really sad, but makes a lot of sense since crystal meth is a huge problem here. And although the violent crime rate is lower than it is on the mainland, there's still a lot of gambling, prostitution, theft, and drug dealing in certain areas. Get used to seeing public drug use and dirty needles just lying around. Speaking of which, number 6. It's dirty. On my first trip to Oahu, I was expecting a beautiful, sparkling, clean paradise. And it was, for the most part, everywhere except Honolulu. Don't get me wrong, there are a couple of clean and hip-looking areas like Ala Moana, but a lot of the buildings look, well, communist. Especially in Waikiki. They're all old and gray and beige and square, and there are a lot of them. It literally felt like China in the 1970s. You'll see dirty needles, trash, and tent cities set up on most beaches in Honolulu. It honestly takes away from the beauty and charm, and even makes a lot of areas just feel straight up unsafe, especially at night. Hawaii's also very humid, so mold is a huge issue here. No matter how well you take care of your house, it'll still find a way to grow. The year-round average humidity of 63% combined with the tropical warm temperatures means mold grows literally everywhere. Another thing that's impossible to get rid of here are cockroaches. Seriously, no matter what you do, they will find a way into your house. And some of them even fly. Yikes. Number 5. Tourists. Now, you might have heard of Waikiki as the perfect vacation, but if you live there, well, let's just say you're not gonna want to live there. Sure, Waikiki Beach is beautiful, but like most things in Honolulu, it's also really overcrowded. Now, many neighborhoods in Hawaii's capital are actually quite nice, but the Ala Moana and Waikiki area are flooded with overpriced shops, mediocre restaurants, and rude tourists who litter and don't respect the culture or environment either. Needless to say, the locals don't exactly love it when people bring their littering mainland ways with them, and they aren't afraid to show it. A lot of tourists and new arrivals take this as racism. And sure, there is some racism toward outsiders, or haoles, as they're locally known, but if you're respectful of the aloha spirit and live the aloha way, you probably won't experience much hostility. You might even receive some aloha in return. Number 4. it's expensive. I know I touched on this earlier with expensive gas prices and private school, but pretty much everything in Honolulu is more expensive than it would be on the mainland. Want to buy a carton of eggs? Well, it's $6 for a dozen. How about a gallon of milk? That'll be $7. You also won't be able to eat out at many places here without spending at least $15 to $20 a meal. Basically, a Costco membership is gonna be a must. This is because it's so expensive to ship things to the island. Even Amazon Prime takes a week instead of 2 days. And a lot of companies don't even ship here at all. But it'll still be expensive as heck to live here, even if whatever you need is grown or made on the island, because there's also a 4.5% sales tax and an 11% state income tax for the highest bracket. This especially sucks since most of the jobs are in the tourism industry, which is already pretty low paying as is. The median household income here is only $63,361, just 14% above the national average, which might not sound too bad, except the overall cost of living is nearly double the national average. Now, on the bright side, Hawaii does have the lowest property taxes in the nation, but unless you're already super rich, work online, or have an incredibly high-paying job lined up, you probably won't be able to afford a house anyways. The average home is worth over $660,000 in Honolulu. But hey, at least it's one of the best places to be homeless. Number 3. It's liberal. What usually goes hand in hand with high taxes? That's right, liberals. Hawaii is often considered either the most or second most liberal state in the country, usually behind only Massachusetts. Now, this isn't necessarily a good or a bad thing, just something you should be aware of if you decide to move here. It used to be a bit more mixed, but Republicans don't even come close to the Democrats in elections now. Both Honolulu County and Hawaii in general have voted overwhelmingly in favor of the Democrat in every presidential election since 1984, and 62.2% voted for Clinton in 2016, more than any other state. People here very openly express themselves and are super progressive, especially on social issues. If free-spirited people who might potentially sunbathe nude make you uncomfortable, Honolulu probably isn't the best place for you. Number 2. Everything runs on Aloha time. I know you might be thinking, what's so bad about that? I'd love for everything to be chill and relaxed. And sure, you might if you're on vacation, but if you're just trying to live your regular life, it can get frustrating. Plan for everything to take at least twice as long in Honolulu as it would anywhere else. This is a phenomenon known as Aloha time, which essentially means time doesn't exist. Everything just happens when it happens, and you can't schedule much, especially when the surf is good. It actually isn't uncommon to see a sign with "Gone surfing, be back soon" posted on local businesses. And many businesses are only open for a few hours a day and sometimes only 3 or 4 days a week. This is because people value time over money here. They aren't trying to get rich and are never in a rush. I've honestly never seen a city where so many people drive way under the speed limit even when there isn't any traffic. If you plan on living here, you better get used to Aloha time, or you just might need a vacation from, well, vacation. Speaking of which, number 1. Island fever. Now this one is usually the make or break for most people. Some residents don't mind being ocean walked onto a tiny island, but some go absolutely nuts with island fever. Yeah, the claustrophobia from being squished by the ocean in every direction is pretty common in Honolulu. You might not mind it for the first year or two, but eventually you'll crave a real road trip after driving in circles around the island and seeing all the same sights again and again and again. I can't emphasize this enough. The island is only 30 miles wide and 40 miles long. The shortest flight to the mainland is over 5 hours, and to make matters worse, it also isn't easy to leave. Considering the high cost of living and low wages, it might be a little difficult to afford plane tickets back and forth to the States. Now be sure to leave